Jason, you want to come over here maybe? Yeah. Does anyone want? Yeah. That sounds good. Come over here. Come right up front. All right, that's very good. Good morning, everybody. I think Jen introduced me. I'm your first speaker for today. My name is Antonio Romanucci. I am one of the founding partners here at Romanucci and Blandon. And we're here today because we are announcing the civil lawsuit on behalf of the family of Abnerd Joseph. We did not need to be here today. None of us needed to be here today, and certainly not this grieving family did they need to be here today. And that's because the building management at 60 East Monroe Street failed to do their job. Abnerd Joseph simply did not need to die. If the building security had done the right thing, the logical thing on that day, what we all believe their training directs them to do when they learned that Abnerd was upset and needed assistance on the night of September 14th, 2023, they should have called and waited for help to arrive. Instead, we know that Abnerd needed help. And how do we know that he needed help? Because we know that at a certain point, his hands were up in the air. It was the symbol to stop, to wait. Abnerd himself was telling us with his hands to wait and de-escalate the situation. He was surrendering. Instead, what happened? He was executed in his own building with building management and security standing by while vigilante justice was executed on Abnerd Joseph. So instead of doing the right thing and obvious thing, building security at the Legacy at Millennium Park at 60 East Monroe Street made the conscious decision to freely encourage an armed resident to roam the halls of their building and hunt for Abnerd Joseph. As a result, vigilante justice was meted out that night. So that resident sought and located Abnerd Joseph, who was in emotional distress. Abnerd was always unarmed. Instead of waiting for law enforcement to arrive and utilize their training in de-escalation and crisis intervention training, the vigilante resident pulled the trigger 7 times and killed Abnerd. So Romanucci and Blandon filed a civil lawsuit against multiple entities who owned and managed the building, as well as its security company, as well as also the gunman resident for wrongful death and the negligent decisions that violated policies and just pure common sense and prevented Abnerd from getting the appropriate help and care he deserved, but more importantly, the time that he deserved to de-escalate that situation. So Abnerd, and you will hear more from Jason and the family, he was an enthusiastic high school assistant principal and was known for his tireless energy and commitment to mentoring high school students around the country, including here in Chicago at Intrinsic High School, where he worked where he worked. Abnerd, we know, had ADHD and had just recently, before his death, been prescribed a new medication. Before he was shot and killed, witnesses say that Abnerd was in emotional distress. He was in the hallway of the building, knocking on doors, asking for help, saying he was concerned for his own safety. It is during that time that building security was made aware of Abnerd's distress, and instead of allowing law enforcement to do their job, building security agents merely accompanied this defendant gunman to find and hunt and killed Abnerd, and they feel that this situation was handled, and look how it was handled, with tragic consequences. And so there's a reason that vigilante justice is illegal, and this case demonstrates exactly why. The shocking decision by the building security company to allow an armed resident to address another resident in emotional distress is absolutely stunning, and the consequences were tragic. Abnerd Joseph needed help that evening and was asking it for as best as he could, and what he got in return was aggression and his own death. I'm going to turn it over to Jason now. Thank you.
morning, and thank you. The lawsuit was filed on May 14th, 2024 in the Circuit Court of Cook County Department Law Division. The plaintiff is Delbert J. Charles as independent administrator of the estate of Abnerd Joseph. The defendants are Building Ownership, as Mr. Romanucci just spoke about, Mesa Development and Avison Young, Chicago. The property manager, Sudler and Company, doing business as Sudler Property Management. The security company, Universal Protection Services, also doing business as Allied University Security Services, and Garrett Mark Smith. Counts in the complaint include negligence, wrongful death, battery, premises liability, and sound in both survival counts on Abnerd's behalf and wrongful death on his family's behalf. The complaint demands a jury trial and asks that the jury determine a dollar amount for compensatory damages, punitive damages, pre-judgment and post-judgment interest as allowable by law and as ordered by the court. Attorney's fees, reasonable costs, and such other relief that the court will deem as just and equitable. Further, Abnerd's family is emphatically urging the Cook County State's Attorney's Office to complete their investigation, to file charges in this matter. A police report says that the gunman originally stated that he fired shots in self-defense, even though Abnerd Joseph was unarmed. The witnesses explained that the gunman proactively sought out and confronted Abnerd on the 48th floor, even though both men lived 19 stories below on the 29th floor. Witnesses to this tragedy described Abnerd's demeanor. He was in distress. They say he talked about having found the secret to helping the children that was in his care, or that were in his care at the school, and that he feared for his life. His family remains deep in grief and is seeking accountability in all its forms for the devastating negligence that resulted in his death. I'd like now to turn this over to Abnerd's brother, Jay Charles, and his sister, Gianna Kelly.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I want to thank you for gathering here today. 8 months ago, my brother, Abnerd Joseph, an assistant principal at Intrinsic School in Chicago, was tragically taken from us in a senseless act of violence inside his own condo building. Abnerd, unarmed, was shot 7 times wearing nothing but his boxer shorts, bathrobe, and socks. Abnerd was just not my brother. He was a pillar in the community, dedicating to shaping the lives of young scholars with whom he worked tirelessly. He built an upstanding reputation throughout his lifetime of integrity and commitment. Today we stand before you heartbroken yet resolute to make sure the community knows the story of my brother's death. We want to defend his character and make people know the man he was and that he devoted his life to education and community service. The reality is that Abnerd deserved to be safe in his own home, just as anyone. His death has left a tremendous toll on us, his family, his scholars, and community at large. We have endured these past 8 months with profound emotional suffering. Yet, we have been patient. Patient despite believing there is more than enough evidence to move forward with an arrest. For those who mercilessly extinguished my brother's life, we are tired, our community is tired, but let it be known that we stand firm and unwavering in our pursuit of justice. We will not stop, we will not falter until those responsible for Abnerd's untimely demise are held accountable. To those who knew Abnerd and to those who wish to uphold truth and justice, we ask for your continued support. Help us ensure that his legacy is honored correctly and that justice for Abnerd Joseph is finally served. and to the American public, a safer nation has to be built. And the only way it's going to be built is with policy change. And I, for one, will join in with anyone. I don't care what color you are, your gender, or your political affiliation. As long as you want to change this gun violent epidemic that exists in this nation. Thank you.
Good morning. First and foremost, thank you all for being here and allowing us to share our story with you. My brother Abnerd Joseph's death has profoundly affected me and my family in ways words cannot fully express. My family and I are left with a profound grief and sorrow due to the senseless tragedy. My family and I are left picking up the pieces, and the pain we feel is not just for his loss alone, but for the shattering of our sense of safety and security. My mother was blessed to have 7 children. In that moment when the shooter pulled the trigger, he might as well have aimed at each of us because each of those shots wounded us too. A piece of us all died that day with my brother. My brother was not only a cherished member of our family, but also a beloved friend to many. He was a person that touched many with his smile, his smell, laughter, humor, intelligence, and unwavering support. He truly changed the lives of so many people who knew him. I mourn and miss my brother every day. And every day I walk past pictures on the wall or look at his contact information in my phone, and it breaks my heart that if I press call, I'll never hear baby sis on the receiving end of it. The pain of his loss is immense. We take comfort in the cherished memories we hold dear in the legacy he leaves behind. We will honor his spirit by cherishing the moments we shared and by striving to live our lives with the same grace, compassion, and zest for life that he embodied. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now take a few questions for the attorneys.
For Antonio or Jason, you both refer to the fact that the building security not only allowed but encouraged the residents who eventually fired the shots to accompany him on his search throughout the building. How do we know this for sure?
Well, they rode the elevator together. I mean, we know that building security and resident rode the elevator together and exited the floor where Abnerd was shot. So we know that there were calls that were made before the shooting. We know that Abnerd was identified as being on a certain floor, and then building security and the resident managed to get to the same floor. So that's why I'm saying it was with security's encouragement that they went and found Abnerd. And I'll tell you what, we would know even more had charges been brought and some of the evidence come out. Here we are, what are we, 8-9 months away from this shooting, and we're still waiting. We know that Chicago police and Cook County State's attorney can act a lot quicker when they want to. If there's a necessity for a dragnet and for charges to be brought, we know that that can be done. And we're asking them to do that here too. We've got a grieving, suffering family who want answers, who want not only civil accountability, but criminal justice too. And had charges been brought, we would know a lot more also.
I assume you haven't been able to look at the building security footage
No.
yet, right?
No, we have not.
That's part of filing the lawsuit.
100%. That's exactly why we have to take the steps. We've been waiting as patiently as possible. Family's been waiting as patiently as possible to see if indeed charges would be brought so we could have a broader scope into this investigation. And so we don't. And at a certain point, we can't wait any longer. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do our thing. We're going to issue subpoenas, and we're going to file discovery, and we're going to get the answers that this family's looking for.
And I guess the reason I was asking if you had seen the camera footage yet was, obviously on the one hand, we have your witness reports of Abner being disoriented, asking for help, And on the other hand, we have a police report which appears to indicate that maybe he attacked the doorman during this process. How do we reconcile those? And does it make
Yeah.
a difference at all in terms of your lawsuit?
In my mind, it makes no difference at all, and here's why. Because first of all, we're not talking about a castle doctrine here. We're not talking about Abner, for example, breaking down somebody's door to their residence or their home where it was a home invasion. So we're not talking about a so-called castle doctrine. Number two, as you heard brother state today, he was in his socks, bathrobe, and boxer shorts. So we know he was unarmed. So if there was any force from Abner, we know that you need to apply proportionate force in return. Okay? So it doesn't matter to our lawsuit at all, because even if there was some sort of physical aggression on Abner's part, what we're saying is what you do in that situation is you step back and you de-escalate and you give time. Time is your best friend in these situations, even if it means locking everybody down and leaving him alone in the hallway.
Antonio?
Yes.
Had Abnerd and this resident with the gun, they both lived on 29th floor, like I said, had they had any interaction before? Did they know each other? And was the gunman in any way a member of law enforcement or security, even not at that building?
So I know most of the answers, but I'm going to turn it over to Jason on that one, because certainly I know the answer to that last part of your question.
So then let me start with the first part of the question regarding any interaction between them. We do presume that there would have been some hallway, hellos and the like. We have no information to indicate that there was any sort of interaction more in-depth than that. Certainly none suggesting an antagonistic history here. In regards to the latter part of your question, his background, the shooter's background, whether or not it included law enforcement or security, there is no information to support that at all.
So just to follow on from that, if there's no reason to support that, why has he not been charged? If you shoot somebody 7 times that's unarmed in the hallway of the apartment building who was brought there by security, why do you think charges have not been brought?
That's an excellent question, and one that the family shares with you. We certainly feel that there is plenty of information at this point to merit charges. I understand the police and the state's attorney's office are collecting all the information they can. That said, as Tony mentioned a moment ago, this was not a castle doctrine scenario. This was a scenario where a security guard and an armed tenant, and possibly a third tenant, hunted down Abnerd on multiple floors of the building in which they lived.
And the gunman, was he a valid void carrier?
On this, I have to rely on the police report, but the indication is, yes, he had a FOID card, and indeed he also had a concealed carry. At the time of the police arriving on the scene, he turned over his gun that he had in his pocket that entire time.
If we could ask you a question of Abnerd's family. Since none of us had a chance to meet him, tell us a little bit about him. What guy was he? Tell us about his interest in children, in his professional capacity. If you could just step
Can you repeat the question?
Just tell us a little bit about him. We never had a chance to meet him. Tell us what kind of person he was, why he's so important to your family, and about why he cared so much about children.
The impact he made on children.
Yeah.
Abner was just that glue. He was just.
Close to the mic so
Abner was just that glue that kept us all together. Like, that man radiated positivity and just light. Like, we went to his school this morning, and the kids painted a mural of him inside the school. That's how much they cherish this man. Like, this man ain't have no type of hatred for nobody. If he seen you, he'll give you the clothes off his back, give you a hug. The doorman at the apartment, when he heard about it, he was distraught because he was like, man, I had cancer. And your brother was the only one that came up to me and was like, hey man, this world would be a worse place if you're not in it. And like, he really did help me with that. Like, Abner was just that person. Like, he'll give you a nickname. If you met Abner, if he met you, he already had a nickname for you in his head already, and it just stuck. Like, he was just that guy. Like, never been in trouble. You can look him up. Never been in trouble. Never had interaction. Like, this man was just positive. Like, he just loved everybody, and it's just unfortunate that he was just taken away from us that way. Cause this man didn't even like guns. He never had one. Like, he always like, man, I don't mess with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So the way that he was just taken from us it's heartbreaking. And it's like, to have him taken away from us like that, then no answers, no nothing, like, it's just heartbreaking.
When you lose somebody unexpectedly, it's always horrible, of course. But under the circumstances, just how has it impacted what the last several months have been for all of you as a family?
Man, everything's just been sad.
You step to the mic if you've got something to say.
I know on my end, and I guess for my siblings and for friends, like, it's just been sad. You can feel like his presence missed. Like, you can still, like, from time to time, I can still hear his voice in my head. Like, I turn around and I just like, damn, I just hear his voice. Like, it's just, I just feel his presence, and it's just sad every day. Like, I'm a cook, and it's like some days, like, I can't even perform my job because I'm just thinking about him. Like, he's just constantly on my mind. Like, every day, every night, every second, I'm just thinking, like, man, what could have been done different? Like, man, Abnerd was just here. Like, it's like a piece of a puzzle, and you done finished the whole puzzle, and it's just that one piece that's missing. And you just looking for it. It's like, you know, the puzzle is just not complete because of that one piece, and that's how our life is. Yeah. Like, he's just that piece that's missing, and the puzzle will never be completed now.
You said that Abnerd would always have nicknames for people. Did he have one for you?
He just called Big Brother.
Big Brother. Yeah.
We have like a guest here today. She's over there. Call her Helicopter Mom. I was baby sis, you know. So.
If I could also just ask, is there any plan for civil litigation against the tenants?
He's named.
In the suit? Okay.
Yes, he is named.
Okay.
You're welcome.
No. I think that's the heartbreaking part too, is that you know, he did like everything right. Like, if you were to, you know, he went to school, he didn't get in trouble with the law, he, you know, worked hard for everything that he had, and I think that is the most heartbreaking part, is that he was like, no, I'm gonna, you know, get where I need to financially, and then I'll have a wife and kids. And it's like, that was taken away from us. Like, we'll never know, you know, like, didn't have a family. Didn't have a chance to create a family yet.
Tony and Jason, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
If I could just add one more thing in response to your question earlier about Abnerd's effect on the children around him. I have to say, I spent this morning watching videos of Abnerd talking about those kids. I watched videos of his colleagues at Intrinsic talking about the impact he had there. And directly responsive to your question, the one thing that I cannot get away from in this situation, can't help but think of, is that his colleagues credited him within the first year of holding that position of Intrinsic in reducing student-on-student physical altercations and violence by 72%. That he reduced bullying in that school by 50%, and he did that by interacting directly with these children and showing them a better path. And he had been on that path himself. Thank you.